Yeah. Y'all don't find it interesting, do you? Why didn't Paul preach and teach about Jesus' life and miracles? Why just his death and resurrection? To omit Jesus. Don't you find it interesting? No, I find it interesting and potentially problematic that crucial parts of Christian faith are never explained or taught in the early church. Paul is arguably, very arguably, the second or third most influential person who ever lived and the author of over half the New Testament. Yet, he never explains the supernatural birth, never quotes Jesus' sermons, never quotes any of Jesus' parables. He never mentioned any of Jesus' miracles or wonders, except that he raised from the dead. Now, if you've ever studied the words of Paul, let's go look. Paul always said, avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions. All right, so if he's telling you to avoid foolish genealogies, that takes care of his supernatural birth, he explains away. And I've already showed you, he never quoted Jesus' sermons. He used them as his own. He never said, thus saith the Lord. Everything he said, Paul says, I say. I say. We saw that in the previous video. He never quotes Jesus' parables. He's omitting Jesus. The only thing he mentions was Jesus raised himself. Read the book of John. The only thing he mentions that Jesus was crucified, buried, and rose again. That's the only thing he mentions. Never Jesus' teachings. Let's go see what Paul said. He said, avoid foolish genealogies and contentions and strivings about the law. There's Jesus' teachings and parables. For they are all unprofitable and vain. So everything Jesus taught is unprofitable and vain. Charging them before the Lord, they strive not about words to no profit. See? Don't worry about what they say. But foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. Yeah, it disrupts Paul's gospel. It disrupts Paul's gospel. Now, as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge, and knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. And idols, there is no. That's where he's telling you to eat food sacrificed to idols. Idols are nothing. And though I have the gift of prophecy, wow, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I can remove the mountains, and clearly not charity, I am nothing. He's setting himself up on a pedestal equal with God. He has all the faith. He could remove mountains if he wants to. Okay, 17:20. 17:20. This is it. So Paul has every bit of faith in the world. He has more faith in Jesus Christ himself. Paul has more faith in Jesus Christ himself. He don't even want you to look up the genealogies about Jesus or the teachings of Jesus, but yet he has all the faith, all the knowledge, understands everything, is a prophet. Now, the prophets were up until John. Thou mightest charge some that they teach no other doctrine than his. Neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies which minister questions rather than godly edifying which is in faith. So do. Now the end of the commandment is charity out of a pure heart. No. To love God with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul, and to love your neighbor. But Paul's saying charity. Was That's loving your neighbor. Now, desiring to be teachers of the law. He's talking about the apostles. They don't know what they're talking about. Old wives' tales. The virgin birth. The miracles. Not giving heed to Jewish fables. The virgin birth. Shun profane babblings. You talking about babblings of the virgin birth? You know? What does Paul want you to ignore? Everything about Jesus Christ. The vain genealogies. Didn't quote his sermons. Made Jesus' sermons as his very own words. I, Paul, I say this, I command, I say to you. That was all Jesus' words. Paul usurped his authority. Isaiah 14:14. He will be like the Most High. But you Paulistas worship Paul and kick Jesus out of the Bible. Once you get into the red words, maybe you'll learn Jesus instead of Paul. You'll learn about the supernatural birth that Paul tells you to shun. And you'll see the words Jesus spoke. Paul never gives Jesus credit for, because Paul says, I say unto you, I command, I give a law. But we know who you worship. You worship the man that didn't preach about Jesus' life and miracles. He just makes you keep him on the cross. Paul makes you keep Jesus on the cross. Well, my Jesus walked out of the tomb, went back to heaven. Yours may still be on the cross. Mine's not.